Speaking of being like a 70s, 80s kid, I guess what were you doing in the 80s? Were you did you ever get into like new wave or any of that music of that time?
No,
No, not really.
I was kind of it's so cliche to say a lost soul, but
Oh,
I really was.
yeah.
I
Well, you sound just really private too.
I was social anxiety was really bad for me.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you're a little bit nervous here,
Yeah.
but it's totally fine. We're all so different, you know. Yeah.
I went to college and I never finished. I couldn't go to class. I would literally walk all the way to class, put my hand on the doorknob, and turn around and go back to my room.
Yeah. Yeah. A large part of being in college is social. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I never. Maybe it's because being transgender, I just felt like I never belonged. So I think my whole life has been driven by that feeling of not belonging.
Yeah. It seems to be a kind of a theme in what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything that besides books you were just mentioning, that you kind of took refuge in during those times?
I don't know. I didn't have a lot of hobbies. It wasn't like mechanical stuff, like building stuff or fixing things. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever really had a job when I was in high school, but it was different then. Kids didn't really have jobs.
Right. Yeah.
Adults worked at McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was a low level job, but still you could get by.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, a young adult, and you could just get a job and then get an apartment.
Yeah.
It seems impossible now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So you did a lot of mechanical stuff, and then you had a twin brother. Mm-hmm. That must be interesting for you, being a trans person. And did your what does your brother feel about this, I guess?
He's probably the only one in my family that's not really accepted it.
Okay. Yeah. Just hard for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when I first told him, he said, this is going to take me time.
Yeah.
And
well, that's a good response in itself, a good initial response.
Yeah.
But he hasn't quite come around yet.
No. I would say not at all.
Yeah.
The last time I talked to him, he called me, wanted some advice on some work he was going to do to his house. And somehow we got to talking about my customers and things, and my name change. And he just said, "That's not your name. I'm not going to call you that."
Oh.
I was like, "Really? You can call me and ask for advice, but you can't call me my new name."
Right. Okay. Well, it's not that hard. Yeah. So he's just being resistant, basically. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Is that hard for you? I would imagine, like twins, they seem like they're very close usually.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a stereotype. I don't know.
We're older now, and of all the members of our family, he's kind of the one I have the least contact with anyway.
Okay.
So, but it still kind of hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
Growing up, we were exact opposites. Just, he was a carbon copy of my dad, and I was a mama's girl.
Yeah. And you still are. Yeah. That was so cute when you were at the door. I was like, oh, look at that. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that. So, I haven't met a lot on this trip. I haven't met a lot of people's families, which is really nice.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, was finding a doctor out here easy or difficult? Did you have any problems with that?
No. For my transgender part, no. There's a place in Concord that really specializes with that, and they're very welcoming, very open.
Because Concord is not that big of a city.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it's like, 40,000, 50,000 people, something like that.
Probably something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't too difficult because there's a clinic in
Yeah.
town. That's great.
Yeah.
And do you like the care that you're receiving? Does it feel respectful? And
Oh yeah.
yeah, great,
Yeah.
great. Through that clinic, through those kinds of clinics, sometimes people meet other trans people. Have you been able to do that, like in a support group or something like that?
I have met other trans people in my support group.
Yeah.
It's an
so
online support group that
online.
isn't affiliated with that place.
Okay.
But I have met others, and we've done some really fun things.
Okay. Like what? Like what kind of stuff?
We would have like a game night that some of the women put together, and that's a lot of fun. And
Like board games and
yeah.
stuff. Okay. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I've gone to a couple of those. There's another one coming up this coming weekend, I think.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. You know, I also talked to a trans woman yesterday who she's the local ambassador for LGBT outdoors organization that's a national one. So if you're interested in any sort of hiking or outdoors activities, that's also available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of those notices for those,
Yeah.
but for whatever reason, the dates didn't work for me.
Yeah. You know, since you're really into reading and literature and that sort of thing, you might want to propose one yourself. You could have like a book club kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like read a trans related book or something like that. You know, some maybe nonfiction, maybe fiction.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there's some good fiction out there, or there's starting to be better fiction out there. It used to be that we were, trans people were always portrayed as some sort of killer or, something awful like that,
Right. There's always a tragedy at the end.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, since you hadn't met any trans people, how did you know that this was possible, I guess, to transition?
That took a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I always knew that I wasn't a guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, I come from, my time, if you weren't a guy, you were a girl. Mm-hmm. So I always just focused on, I'm a girl. Now, I know that now there's many different points along the spectrum.
Yeah.
But for me, I always just focused on, I'm a girl.
Right.
So, and I'm very happy with that.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to realize that I could live as a girl.
Yeah.
That it would be accepted.
Yeah.
When I grew up, it was just transgender people who transitioned were just, they weren't looked on in any favorable light.
Right.
It was almost, a laughing stock.
Right.
This is how I understood it,
Yeah.
Or
their lives were part of some tabloid or something like that. Like it became big news.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If they were popular or famous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Christine Jorgensen, for instance.
So I don't know. I just never really thought about it being possible. And then more and more I started, reading about it and,
Were you like looking on the internet?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any websites that you particularly enjoyed looking at or got a lot of information from?
Yes, but I couldn't name what they were right now.
Okay. Yeah.
But the more I learned about it, the more I was just like, I could do this.
Yeah.
And then when I started thinking about doing it,
it
just made me feel so terrific.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very long before I came to the conclusion, this is what I need. This is what's going to work for me.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it really has. I'm so much happier now.
How long was that process where you were like looking up resources online and
like most of last year?
Oh, wow. So that was really, really an opening up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Suddenly. Very suddenly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's wonderful. Something that had been kind of inside you for a long time, not expressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's great.
I had all these negative feelings about myself. And that was what was driving the social anxiety and everything. And,
yes.
And, I was just finally just started well, I'd hit that wall that I was talking about, where I knew that something had to change.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking about myself and saying, why am I so hard on myself?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, because I'm pretending, I'm a fake.
Yeah. Or you're trying to meet other people's expectations.
Right. I'm just, but when I do that, I'm just pretending. I'm not my real self.
Yeah.
And so there was just a lot of, self-negativity there. And when I started thinking about, living my life as a woman, all of that started to just go away. It was just like I don't know, what did I say to myself? It was like a shell being lifted off of me, and all of a sudden I could see the world. It was like the Wizard of Oz when she steps out and it's all in full color.
Yes, right.
It was just like, oh my gosh,
Technicolor.
There's a world out here, and I see it how everybody else did.
Wow. Wow.
I actually always used to tell people that if I wrote an autobiography, I could title it "The World Belongs to Everyone But Me."
Oh. Wow.
And that's what it was like before.
But now you could change that title.
Yes, I can.
What would the title be now?
I don't know.
Stepping out into Technicolor?
How about I'm on top of the world?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Sure. Wow. That's great. So in my project, I talk about politics and religion and that sort of thing, as well as identity. Are you, what would you say your political beliefs are, and if that relates at all to your identity, to being a trans person?
The country's so divided now.
Yes.
It's either you're on one side or you're on another.
Yes.
So obviously there's one side that really tends to be pushing a very anti-transgender agenda.
Very.
So, I'm not on that side.
Yes. Yeah.
But, I really don't think about politics and stuff that much. But it just seems like, and again, it's because we're so divided. It's us and them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say they, they just have this narrative and these ideas that to me are just so absurd.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they say that, the other side is the one that's telling all the lies and so it's very confusing for me.
Yeah.
But obviously, it's not very hard for me to pick a side if I have to pick a side.
Yeah, absolutely. The people who are taking away your rights, that would be the side that I would not, support.
Right.
And, what bothers me too is when people say that we're very divided. And I'm actually okay with that, because if there is one side taking away rights, well, everybody should be against them.
Yeah.
Right? If you're an American and you believe in freedom and people's rights and that we have a constitution, well, if some people are trying to take away other Americans' rights, every American should be against that,
Right.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
No matter if you're conservative or liberal or whatever, it shouldn't matter. Do you, so before we started the recording, you mentioned something about the governor here, right?
Yeah.
Sununu. Mm-hmm. So what was that about?
Oh,
yeah.
I thought we were talking about names for things or something.
Yeah.
Yes. The how did I say that? There's some center? Now dysfunctional youth detention center that used to be called the Sununu Youth Detention Center.
Okay.
And I was commenting on how
is that like a youth prison or something?
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I was commenting
on
how
what
they
a thing to be like named after.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be proud of that, a youth prison.
Well, I don't know how that even came about. But,
yeah. Well, I was talking about going to the Southwest, right? Because winter's coming, right? Snow is coming. Mm-hmm. And I'm basically living in my car with my dog and traveling around. So I want to avoid winter. So I was thinking of going to the Southwest after completing some of the interviews here in the Northeast. As I get some medical care in Boston. So that's how it came out, because we were talking about when I was younger, I was hitchhiking and I saw the migration of the tarantulas.
Yes. Yep.
I was hitchhiking on a highway and I saw the ground moving, and apparently the tarantulas migrate so that they can breed or something. And then I mentioned that Mount Diablo in the East Bay of San Francisco, near Concord, actually, California. Mount Diablo has tarantulas on it because it's very arid and it's just this peak that's by itself. So it has kind of a population there. And then I mentioned that Reagan, they were going to change the name to Mount Reagan, but then there was a petition to change Reagan's name to El Diablo.
Yes.
and then also there was a petition in the San Francisco Bay Area to name a sewage plant after George W. Bush. Yeah. So that's how we got.
Right.
That was
that's
the string.
Right.
That was
what I said. Our governor has a dysfunctional youth detention center named after him. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of Sununu, it seems like there's sort of a Sununu dynasty here in New Hampshire. Is that true?
Oh yeah, because actually I think the naming of that center was after his father.
Oh, okay.
Who was a governor.
Yes.
in years before.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think he's the recent Sununu or whatever is going to win again? Win as governor? What do you think about that?
It wouldn't be my choice.
Yeah.
But like most of these political races, they all seem very, very close.
Yeah. Yeah. So, very close.
You know, it's kind of what you were saying. Well, it should be a fringe.
Yeah.
Or what one would think would just be a small fringe seems to be at least half the country. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. And, you know, as a trans person, even though I'm more public, actually, I'm actually also a very private person. That may seem strange because I'm doing this project, but I'm very much like you. I just like to read books and stay at home and cook and, you know, hang out with my dog or whatever. So it's so strange, like being in my car and turning on the radio and hearing people talk about trans people on the radio. Like it's, everybody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about people like me, people like you, what rights we should have in society, if we should even have healthcare. It's so weird. I mean, what a strange time that we're in. Mm-hmm. It's actually worse than when I was younger, when I actually transitioned a little over 20 years ago. It's actually worse now. I feel like we've gone backwards.
Yeah. And I don't know if they just picked a target to keep their names in the news.
Yes. Or another target for hatred. Because it used to be like, gay people, lesbians, bisexuals. And now that's kind of gone mainstream in a way. You know, they have a lot more rights now and whatever. It's kind of old hat even in some ways. But now they got to pick on somebody else. So they choose, trans people who are just about the most trodden on group in the United States. And we're so small. We're such a tiny little community. Yeah. I mean, we must be tiny if you hadn't even met any trans people. And we're about the same age. Yeah. And I mean, that's just amazing to me, actually. Yeah. 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 So is anything happening in the state that you are at all concerned about in terms of politics?
I don't like what they've done with the schools.
What have they done with schools?
Well, I believe we have this voucher program now where taxpayers can pay for
private and religious
people to
schools.
Send their kids to private and religious schools.
Yeah, mostly religious schools.
Yes. And, it was sold as, well, it allows lower income families to send their kids to a private school. Sure. And, what I feel it really is just a way for these people to get the state to pay for them to send their kids to private schools. Yes. People who could have afforded it anyway. Yes. I doubt that it's really going to make any difference for people who couldn't have afforded to send their kids to begin with.
That would be an interesting graduate study to look at what happened after approving that. Yeah. Yeah. Like, did lower income kids actually were they able to access a better quality education?
Yeah.
Was there better outcomes from that? Or did it just funnel public money to religious organizations?
That's
Yeah.
what I would be afraid of.
Yeah. What a scam.
Yeah.
What a scam.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they have, I'm not really familiar with this topic, but like the critical race theory and not being able to promote that and telling teachers what they can and can't say in class.
Sure. Well, I mean, the problem with it is that everything is being labeled critical race theory if they talk about racism or slavery. And I mean, what was the economy of the early part of this country, or, prior to also the forming of the country? It was based in slavery. So we have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we have to. And we still feel the repercussions of it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm not really familiar with that whole topic, but it seems to me that there's a group of people out there who are willing to just rewrite history so it sounds the way they would like it better. Yeah. Those little fairy tales about, I mean, I really like Thanksgiving, just because it's like a harvest feast and, there's a lot of food. People get together with their families and stuff. But all the stories around it are complete crap. Like the meeting of the people and, and all that. And I love how people are changing it into like Indigenous Peoples Day instead. I think they're also doing that with Columbus Day as well. Yeah. I hope, I don't know if this will ever happen. I hope that it does, that maybe those will be officially renamed maybe at some point, but who knows, maybe it'll just be a social movement. That's okay too. That's okay too. I think if people travel to some of the Caribbean countries, they'll find out that Columbus wasn't as great a person as history books make him out to be. He
basically mutilated people to get gold. So
I mean, enslaved entire population. For his wealth.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
And there was an article in the paper recently, somebody was defending that, saying, well, slavery was just a common practice back then.
Yeah, but that doesn't
make it right.
That doesn't make it right. Yeah, I know. Well, yeah. Thank goodness, there were people who were against it and, the abolitionists, and finally that came about. I mean, obviously it took a really long time, but yeah. So you were mentioning that you go out and you go to board game events and that sort of thing. Is there any other sort of socializing that you do in your community? Any sort of like country fair activities or anything like that?
No? Not really.
No.
Other than just spectate. No, I'm really starting to live a new life.
Okay.
Like I said, I always kind of lived life from the outside looking in. So I have a lot of years of that experience and not too much of trying to immerse myself in other things.
So you're somebody who is on the edges looking in and spectating and I wonder, do you want to be more involved?
I would like to. Yeah. It's, when I go out and do things now, I don't really have that feeling that I don't belong here. Mainly I go out and do things with other transgender people, but still, I don't have that feeling. I remember the first support group meeting I went to, it was online. And
was it like a Zoom meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you're coming out in COVID, the kind of COVID era. So
And it was kind of, first part of the meeting, everybody just introduces themselves and says something about them. And she was just like, well, who wants to go first? And I was like, I will.
Okay. All right, there you go.
I was not at all self-conscious or again, like I say again, that feeling of I don't belong here. These people don't, this is their group and I'm just here. I just immediately felt like this is where, this is my space. Yeah. And, so
I think that's your phone.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
So,
So you felt very welcomed, and
yes,
you felt like that was your
so
space.
I've really, started to really, and I think I said this before, I started to see, this is what life is like for everybody else. Well, not
Yes.
everyone, but,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I imagined everybody else.
Sure.
And, and so it's been, uh, enlightening for me.
Yeah. 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 It sounds like it's really enriching for you as well. Like, would you want to do more things like that? Like maybe, I'm imagining that some local trans women, or maybe, local meaning kind of regional, because this is more of a rural area, are maybe involved in women's events or women's groups. But there's probably, fiber arts events, that sort of thing. Is that the sort of thing that maybe you would want to be involved in? And
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Might be maybe kind of taking things that I'm already familiar with and doing them, in a more female environment.
Yeah. Like a female car enthusiast.
Yeah. Or even I went to a customer's house recently and we were putting some shelves up. She was asking me about hollow wall anchors and things. And,
okay.
And I had a whole box full of all different ones. And I was showing her all the different kinds.
Yeah.
And the pluses and minuses of different types and how they're used. And she was just fascinated at my knowledge of this topic. And later she sent me a text and said how much she appreciated me explaining all that to her, and suggested that maybe I, start some kind of a group where, just let women learn about, different carpentry type things or things.
Like a mentorship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how I'd ever put that together, but I was just like, oh, well, I thanked her for the compliment and said that was a great idea.
I think that is a really good idea for you, because you have a wealth of knowledge just from, tinkering from when you were a child all the way up to your being, somebody who can work on classic cars and, make a house. Obviously that's also a lot of work, but I mean, so many women would be so appreciative of that. They would love you for that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you got some really good feedback. Mm-hmm. It's really, I mean, having my own history of being female when I was younger, nobody wanted to teach me. In fact, people wanted me to go away when I wanted to learn that kind of stuff. So you would have a lot of people coming to you. I wonder if there's any, women's classic car organizations up here in New Hampshire or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, something to look into.
There's gay classic car groups.
Yeah. I bet there's a women's one too. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Taking that extra step of going beyond the trans community, it's kind of another process, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been nervous about that as well. For as much as I can be outgoing, I'm still kind of a private person. So going into like gay male spaces or where men are talking about tools or whatever, I'm like, I feel a little bit lost, So, yeah, still a little bit other.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that. I have an unusual history, as you do as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just an example of myself being more less self-conscious and things. We went to a Halloween thing on Sunday.
Oh, great!
And I made a costume.
Oh, good.
And I wore it, and there was 4 of us, and I was the only one that had a costume, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
And it was just a homemade costume.
Sure.
It wasn't anything great, but I didn't. I wasn't the least bit self-conscious about that.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
And what most people around me don't understand is I would have never done that before. As a guy, I would have just felt like a complete idiot doing that. But as myself, it was just fun.
Yeah, just fun, playful.
Yeah.
What was your costume of, by the way?
It was a cat.
A cat. All right, awesome. I was just looking at a website where I guess there's this trend of people doing very mundane activity Halloween costumes, like standing at the bus stop and waiting for the bus. Or I just got fired from Twitter and holding an empty box. Like just kind of mundane. But I just think it's so funny. I don't really dress up for Halloween, but I appreciate other people's effort at it. Yeah. I'm always that person. I'm like the person who supports from the outside, like if somebody's doing a project, like I have a friend who runs a soup kitchen up in Fairbanks, which is extremely hard work. Talk about hard work, right? I mean, yeah, they work very hard. And so I would try and go out and get supplies for them when COVID was really bad, when we were kind of peaking with that, and there was no food and no supplies up in Alaska. But that's the kind of role I like, just kind of supporting people from the outside. Yeah. I don't like to be the center of attention. Yeah. Yeah. I just like to be on the supportive person. Anyway, any plans for the future? You got anything going on that you're looking to do? Maybe build another house, or I don't know.
No. I want to go on a trip somewhere.
Oh yeah, where would you like to go?
I don't know, someplace.
Have you done much traveling?
We've done some traveling.
Yeah. Where have you gone?
We went to Israel.
Oh wow!
And
wow!
And then we went to Jordan the next year.
Oh yeah!
It was just
Jordan is extraordinarily beautiful.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
There's so much history there.
Yes. That's where all those movies are set. Like Indiana Jones and stuff. Just because it's so beautiful. And Lawrence of Arabia. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, and we went to Istanbul. That was a lot of fun.
Oh yes.
But I want to go to Kenya.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I actually went there when I was a teenager, like about 13. We lived in Zambia when I was 13, 14. And we went to Kenya. Any other places you'd like to see besides Kenya?
Thailand's on my list.
Oh, yeah. Thailand. Yeah. 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 We also went there. Saw a lot of Buddhas. Saw a lot of reclining Buddhas there. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty cool. Great. Well, yeah, I would also like to do some traveling, but I'm poor, so I can't. Yeah. But I can, I'm traveling around the U.S., and that's great. I love it.
That's an admirable goal, too.
Yeah. I'm really having a lot of fun. And I got to say, I've really enjoyed our interview tonight. You're more nervous, and it's we've been less talkative than I'm usually. This has been less of a talkative interview, but I think that the way you are is very communicating. It's very communicative of who you are internally. You I think anybody who watches this can see like your spirit, how you're that you're a very gentle person and thoughtful, and so it's really nice to be able to meet you and talk with you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I love it too that you're this really proficient mechanic and house builder and all that. I love it. I love our diversity.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. So
well, it was very nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming over.
Yeah, and this was so last minute too. Somebody unfortunately canceled on me, so you contacted me right at the exact time.
Great.
So yeah. And now I'm off to Massachusetts again for another medical appointment, and then we'll figure out what I'm doing from there. Well, maybe I'll go to the desert of the Southwest and see some more tarantulas.
I wish you the best.
Or there's a possibility that I could stay at a cabin, but that's he's kind of working on it, seeing if that'll work. Yeah.
Oh, good.
That would be nice for me. I would like to stay in a cabin over the winter. Anyway, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
There goes the equipment. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. I love this. I love that you brought up the Wizard of Oz as well. That's really, that's a vivid image. Yeah, cool. Yeah. Is it possible for me to see your VW? Is it in that kind of state? Or
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe your van or something, because I'm sure it's just full, full of stuff. Yeah. I'm always amazed at tools and stuff because I have no idea what they do. Yeah. I have carving tools, but that's different, Anyway, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It's such a pleasure to meet you. All right, until next time, see y'all. Bye-bye.